Ex-prosecutor Joe Teirab wins GOP primary for seat held by Minnesota Democratic Representative Angie Craig. Election 2024 Minnesota. Candidate Joe Teirab speaks during a Congressional Candidate Forum for Minnesota's 1st and 2nd Districts at Farmfest in Morgan, Minnesota, on Tuesday, August 6, 2024. Sherry L. Gross/Star Tribune via AP, Associated Press. Minneapolis, AP. Former federal prosecutor Joe Teirab has won a contested GOP primary for Minnesota's 2nd District seat held by Democratic Representative Angie Craig. Teirab has the support of former President Donald Trump, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and the National Republican Congressional Committee. His opponent, defense attorney Tayler Rahm, won the endorsement at the district convention with support from grassroots conservatives. While Rahm announced in July that he was suspending his campaign and would instead serve as a senior advisor for Trump's Minnesota campaign, he remained on the ballot. Teirab will face Craig in what's expected to be Minnesota's most competitive House race in November. Craig issued a statement following Teirab's win, calling him a guy who recently moved to the district because he saw a political opportunity. He's a guy who has spent months doing anything to win the support of Washington Republicans, Craig said. And he's a guy who has made it his life's mission to take away reproductive freedoms from families and give those decisions to politicians. Meanwhile, Democratic U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar, one of the progressive House members known as the Squad, and a sharp critic of how Israel has conducted the war in Gaza, is trying to avoid the fate of two of her closest allies in Minnesota's primary elections Tuesday. Omar is defending her Minneapolis area 5th District seat against a repeat challenge from former Minneapolis City Council member Don Samuels, a more centrist liberal whom she only narrowly defeated in the 2022 primary. In the main statewide race on the ballot, conservative populist and former NBA player Royce White is facing a more conventional GOP candidate, Navy veteran Joe Fraser, for the right to challenge Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar. Omar's fellow Squad member Representative Cori Bush lost the Democratic nomination in Missouri last week. Representative Jamal Bowman of New York lost his primary in June. The only charter member not facing a primary challenge is Representative Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts. Both Bush and Bowman faced well-funded challengers and millions of dollars in spending by the United Democracy Project, a super-political action committee affiliated with the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, which appears to be sitting out the Minnesota race. But Omar isn't taking victory for granted. Omar reported spending $2.3 million before the 2022 primary. In the same period this year, she reported raising about $6.2 million. Samuels has raised about $1.4 million. Omar, a Somali American and Muslim, came under fire from the Jamaican-born Samuels and others in her first term for comments that were widely criticized for invoking anti-Semitic tropes and suggesting Jewish Americans have divided loyalties. This time, Samuels has criticized her condemnation of the Israeli government's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. While Omar has also criticized Hamas for attacking Israel and taking hostages, Samuels says she's one-sided and divisive. He's also been stressing the public safety issues he focused on in 2022. The big issue at the time was policing in Minneapolis, where a former police officer murdered George Floyd in 2020. Polls closed at 8 p.m. across Minnesota, but results from the Omar Samuels race were expected to take a while. Hennepin County, which includes all of Minneapolis and all but a few communities in their district, didn't release any results from the presidential primary in March until 9:40 p.m., when the county released nearly all its votes. County officials said they expected a similar timeline for Tuesday's primary due to a legislative change enacted this year that allows for ballots to be dropped off until 8 p.m., which has resulted in slower results reporting. The winner in the overwhelmingly Democratic district will face Republican Dalia Al-Akadi, an Iraqi-American journalist and self-described secular Muslim who calls Omar pro-Hamas and a terrorist sympathizer. In the U.S. Senate race, White, an ally of imprisoned former Trump aide Steve Bannon and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, shocked many political observers when he defeated Fraser at the party convention for the GOP endorsement. White's social media comments have been denounced as misogynistic, homophobic, anti-Semitic and profane. His legal and financial problems include unpaid child support and questionable campaign spending, including $1,200 spent at a Florida strip club after he lost his primary challenge to Omar in 2022. He argues that, as a black man, he can broaden the party's base by appealing to voters of color in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area and others disillusioned with establishment politics. Fraser has said White's confrontational style and message won't attract the moderates and independents needed for a competitive challenge against Klobuchar, who's seeking a fourth term. He said he offers a more mainstream approach, stressing fiscal conservatism, a strong defense, world leadership, and small government. Fraser has also highlighted his 26 years in the Navy, where he was an intelligence officer and served a combat tour in Iraq. Neither has anywhere near the resources that Klobuchar has. White last reported raising $133,000, while Fraser has taken in $68,000. Klobuchar, meanwhile, has collected about $19 million this cycle and has more than $6 million available to spend on the general election campaign. She faced only nominal primary opposition. Another clash between establishment and grassroots Republicans is playing out in western Minnesota's 7th District. GOP Representative Michelle Fischbach is considered one of the most conservative members of Congress and has Trump's endorsement. But small businessman Steve Boyd, running to her right on a religious platform, blocked her from getting endorsement at the district convention. Boyd has reported spending $170,000, while Fischbach has spent over $1 million. This story has been updated to correct that Angie Craig represents the 2nd District, not the 1st District.